Uti stared at his friend Obina, who was drinking heavily in his living room because of a heartbreak. Obina had gone to visit his fiancée unannounced on a Saturday evening, and he had met her with another man in bed. What hurt him most was that he had seen that guy with her many times, but she claimed he was her cousin. He had believed her, even though there was an uneasy feeling he felt about their extreme closeness. But because he didn't want her to feel insulted, he didn't talk about it anymore. You are a good man, so it's her loss. She doesn't deserve you, said Uti to him. I trusted her. I loved her. I cherished her. Why would she do such a thing to me? Obina lamented. It's okay. You saw the signs from the beginning, but you were carried away by the fact that she was an ambitious and high-flyer lady like you. I know you have always loved ambitious ladies, but they are only good for projects and collaborations, not for marriage. For marriage, you need a woman that will calm down and be a wife and mother to your children. An ambitious woman can't do that, said Uti. Obina wanted to take another sip of drink, but Uti forced it from him. Come on, man. Be strong. Don't get wasted simply because of a woman. You saw the signs now. She was always traveling for business summits and lodging in different hotels. Even CEOs don't go for business summits as much as she did. That was when I knew something was fishy, said Uti. You have a good woman like Sandra around you. Why aren't you dating her? Sandra is cool-headed, calm, and collected. Why are you keeping her just as a friend? If you let another man have that lady, then you are not wise, he said. She's not my type. I don't like my wife being a trader. I love ambitious ladies just as I am, said Obina. I've always known that about you. But don't you think that when the desirable isn't available, you have to learn to love the available? All the high-flyer ladies you have dated did nothing but break your heart. You remember Faith? She left you because she got promoted twice and you were on the same level, Uti said. Don't mind that one. That was when the company had issues with my record. Didn't I get all my due promotions later? She was impatient, said Obina. That's not the point. The point is, a woman needs more than being ambitious to be a good wife. Since I knew you, you have dated 3 of them and you didn't work out. If I remember, the first one was stingy, right? Asked Uti. Laura, that one that bought me nothing on my birthday, despite spending back to back on her for 7 months. And to think I wanted to continue the relationship. Thank God you spoke sensely to me, replied Obina. Yes, that was a huge red flag, because she knew your birthday. This was someone whose house rent you paid, sent lunch to her every day, and she didn't deem it fit to give you a gift all through the 7 months of dating her. You thought it was normal until I showed you what my own girl bought for me on my birthday. Your eyes have seen shege, Uti chuckled. At this point, maybe I will just give up on women matters for now, said Obina. How will you give up on women's matter at age 33? Anyway, trust your mom. She won't let that happen. Remember, she has been pestering you to give her a grandchild. Let her look for a grandchild elsewhere. I can't kill myself, Obina said. Obina is a top executive personnel in his place of work. He has a PhD and many certifications in his field. His certifications span across international institutions from various countries. He works in one of the top best companies in his city and is the 3rd in the line of hierarchy to the CEO. He runs a side hustle as a business consultant and he plans to launch out full-time in a few years' time. He has a family of professionals. His dad is a chief medical doctor of a Nigerian hospital. His mother is a professor in one of the universities in the United Kingdom. His brothers are also top professionals. As a result of this background, he always gravitates towards professionals as his close friends. His friends are highly ambitious people like him, because that's always the pull that gravitates him to making them friends. Sandra is a trader. She sells clothes. She has become a friend to Obina because of something exceptional she did. Had rushed him to the hospital one time he had an accident. She also stayed with him until his family came, a gesture that Obina was so grateful for, and he became friends with her. Contrary to his culture of being friends only with professionals, Sandra is a first-degree holder who decided to get into trading of clothes 2 years after she left school, and she didn't get a job. Sandra had plans to do her master's immediately after school, but she couldn't do it because she lost her sponsor. She planned to save for her master's, but she couldn't do that for 2 years. Because of the poor pay she was receiving as a teacher, she could barely even meet her needs. Gradually, she began to lose interest in pursuing her master's when she realized that some of her friends with master's degree were still jobless. "I can't afford to invest in anything that won't pay my life at this stage," she would say. She realized that the people who were doing well financially around her were people in business. Her affection for business grew, and her former affection for education died. She didn't have any capital to start a business. She heard of drop shipping. She decided to drop ship for a popular fabric vendor. She would get pictures of the clothes and advertise them on the social media. At first, sales was low, but she didn't give up. She started dancing on the social media to sell. She cultivated the habit of running sales and doing trade fairs. She also collaborated with vendors who sold supplementary items like jewelry, shoe and bag in order to make her sales attractive. After 6 months of intense sales strategies, she was able to buy goods with her money. She started by selling thrift clothes online. She would take them to the market on popular market days. She would take them to schools and other workplaces. It was at this stage she met Obina. She had traveled to get her goods from a bigger city. On getting close to the city, she had an argument with the driver who wanted to take a longer journey in order to get more passengers. Sandra would have none of it. She refused to agree to the arrangement, so the driver offered to pay her back her money, and she got down. She got down angrily with her 2 big bags and stood by the roadside. It was a lonely road, and she began to ask herself if her decision to get down wasn't a foolish one. In the middle of her thoughts, she heard a thud. Bam! She jerked in fear. When she recovered, she tried to see where the sound came from. Close to her on the express was a car involved in an accident. She was afraid. She stood for some seconds, thinking of what to do. 2 other cars had passed by, but none stopped. She got close to the car and realized it had just one person in it, the driver of the car. He had lost consciousness and was bleeding too. She tried to flag down vehicles, but they weren't responding. Just then, the man started gasping for breath. She was a member of the Red Cross in school, so she knew how to perform a CPR. She brought him out with all her strength and laid him on the ground. She performed a CPR on him. Just then, she saw a vehicle containing policemen waved frantically at them. They stopped and took the victim to the nearest hospital. Sandra was with him. She had picked his phone to call the last person he called. Obina woke up 5 hours later. He had seen his sister and a strange lady at his bedside. His sister hugged him and introduced Sandra to him. Obina was so grateful. When he heard the details of how she saved him, his respect for her grew. Why his sister had warned him to be careful after he exchanged phone numbers with Sandra. After she had left, Flora, his sister, had called his attention to something. Ensure you manage the relationship with her well, because we don't know if she did this for her selfish reasons and an ulterior motive, she said. After he was discharged, he had called her once to appreciate her. They both lived in the same city, but his sister's words rang in his mind. He had tried giving her money the very day he regained consciousness, but she didn't take it. Gesture remained evergreen in his memory, but he still controlled himself. He didn't want to be trapped into a romantic relationship in the guise of appreciation. One day, one of his friend's wives had invited him to a trade fair. It was on a Saturday evening, so he was free. He drove there and located a stand. He bought some items, and while going back to his car, he saw a familiar face at the stand, calling out to customers and dancing while at it. "Come and buy what I am selling," said the person. Obina stepped closer, and just before he talked, the lady was smiling and greeting him. It was Sandra, the lady that helped him when he had an accident. He was so excited to see her. Sandra was happy too. They exchanged pleasantries and talked for 5 minutes. Obina couldn't buy anything from her because she doesn't sell things he wears. He invited her for lunch in his house, and Sandra agreed. That was what signified the beginning of their friendship. Sandra collected his bags and helped him carry his items to the car. That melted his heart. Some days later, Sandra had gone to his house for the arranged lunch. Sandra had loved him from the very first time she helped him, and had been disappointed when he didn't pursue friendship with her after the accident. She wasn't the type that chases a man, so she accepted the reality. How happy she was when he gave her his address for lunch. Since then, they became friends. Sandra had got to know he was in a relationship, so she withdrew a little from the frequent meetings with him. She didn't want to get hurt. She still has hopes though. They had physical meetings once a month and talked more on WhatsApp. Obina had invited her for outings 1 or 2 times, and his friends got to know her. But the thought of dating her hasn't crossed his mind. He liked her as a person, but she's just a trader. He doesn't operate in that realm. He wants someone he can discuss office issues with. Sandra has been a classy lady in her approach with him. Not once has she asked him for money, despite the knowledge of his financial capacity. She even bought him a gift on his birthday, something his fiancé didn't do. She is such a sweet soul, Obina had told Uti when they were discussing her during one of their conversations. "If you know you like this lady, I see her becoming Mrs. Obina," Uti had said. "Nah, she's a nice person. I like her as a friend. But that's it. I still want a professional as my wife," he said. "How did you develop this weird marital yardstick? Is marriage an organization? Why so much attention on qualifications? It's a home you want to build with her, not a company," Uti had said. "Well, I said what I said, and I mean what I said." That was Obina's reply that day. After his latest heartbreak from a high-flyer professional woman, he took a break from dating. Sandra didn't know about the breakup. She just realized he was arranging hangouts with her more often. He liked her, but he still wasn't sure if he wanted to take it a step higher. He wants a really ambitious woman because he wants someone he can build real wealth with. He was in doubt over how ambitious she was. His issue with being with a trader is he believes lack of ambition is the reason a graduate would opt for such a life. In the middle of his doubts, Sandra had invited him to a shop opening ceremony. After being an online vendor for 2 years, she decided to rent a shop for her growing business. The shop was also located in a decent part of the city. When Obina went for the event, he was thrilled. He hadn't expected much from a thrift shop, but the clothes were well arranged as though they were not thrift. The ambience of the shop was similar to that of boutiques that sold brand new clothes. She had also ran a 30% off her products that day, but you must buy at least 3 products. Obina liked her strategy. It conveyed the personality of an ambitious woman in his mind. He had gone with Uti that day. While they were eating and drinking in the event, Uti had confirmed the growing idea in his mind. This lady is a go-getter. From being an online treat vendor to owning a treat shop in one of the choice areas of the city, I salute her. A man will be really lucky, he said. Obina was quiet as he continued to ruminate over it. After the event, he gave an envelope that contained some money. Sandra was excited. She thanked him for his gesture. For the next 2 weeks, Obina continued to think, asking himself if he really wanted to go ahead with having a relationship with her. All his siblings are married to high-flying professionals. As much as he loved Sandra, he still wasn't sure he would be able to do away with what he had always wanted since his childhood, which was getting married to a professional. One day, he took Sandra out for lunch, and when they were done eating, they indulged in small talks. Just then, Sandra had her phone beep. She picked her phone and checked the message. She was smiling while reading it. That act caught Obina's attention, and a lot of things began to go on in his mind. Who sent her a message? Why is she smiling? Does she have a boyfriend or fiancé? I hope and pray the answer is no, he thought. When he couldn't keep it to himself anymore, he asked, "Who was that?" Sandra smiled. "It's this guy that has been asking me out for some time now. He just sent a funny meme to me. It's so hilarious," she said. Obina shifted uneasily in his seat. "Tell me more," he said. "Nothing much, except that he has been on my case for 3 months. He sends me messages every day, even though I have told him many times to stop, but he hasn't stopped. That's his palaver," she said, smiling. Obina stared at her, trying to read her face. "Why aren't you saying yes to him?" he asked. "He's not my type. I have tried to say yes to him, but my heart loses peace anytime I attempt to say yes," she said. "What are the qualities you desire in a man?" Sandra paused to process her thoughts, then talked. "He must be godly, decent, ambitious, and disciplined," she said. "What if he has all these qualities and he is poor?" he asked. "As long as he has something doing that can take care of 2 extra mouths and is ambitious, I am good to go. I work too, so I won't be totally dependent on him," she said. Her answer sounded mature to Obina. He had stopped the topic, and they continued gisting. Some minutes later, Obina took her to her shop while he went back to his workplace. He kept on ruminating on his meeting with Sandra. He realized that if he didn't make his decision fast, he might lose her. He didn't want that to happen, so he arranged dinner in his house. He had taken time to cook one of his signature meals, which he was really good at, fried rice and chicken. Sandra came in gorgeously dressed, the aroma of the food tantalizing her nose. Obina had ushered her to her seat like a queen. Sandra could feel it in her heart that something good was about to happen. "Nice aroma. The look is appealing. I hope it tastes good," she said, smiling. Obina smiled. She took a spoonful, and after a few seconds of getting a feedback from her taste buds, "This tastes really good," she commented. "Thank you. I'm a good cook. I just don't boast about it," Obina said. Sandra chuckled. "You really are." After the meal and some small talks, Obina proposed a relationship with her. "I have loved you from the very first day I met you. You are courageous, full of love, and a go-getter. I would like to do life with you. I want you by my side as my wife," he said with pleading eyes. "I have always loved you, but I wanted you to take the lead. You are a good man. Many times you have proven that in our friendship. So yes, I will marry you," she said. And just then, Obina tapped the table with a fork, and his friends, both male and female, came out from different rooms of the house with a loud shout. Some had balloons in their hands, one of them had a cake, someone was with a trumpet, so he played. Sandra was really caught off guard. She hadn't expected that at all. She thought there were only two of them in the house. She popped her eyeballs open in shock. Obina smiled and hugged her. They joined in the party, and there were small chops for everyone to eat. There was a photography session too. It was really a memorable day for Sandra. It was her dream come true in such a grand manner. Both of them fed each other cake, and the guests clapped for them. They started their relationship, and it was a blissful one. Sandra got to know more things about Obina. He's a really goal-driven person. He has a certification program he runs. He always has a summit, lecture, or seminar to attend. As a result, he is rich in connections. He once asked Sandra to submit her CV to him in order to help her press some buttons to get a job, but she declined. She said she was okay with her business and she was earning well. She said she would rather expand her business than start a job as an entry level. That was a shock to Obina because he had thought lack of job was the reason for the business, but he waved it off. Months later, they got married. It was a beautiful event that had many people in attendance. Sandra got to know how highly connected her husband was that day. She was happy. She felt secured at the realization that if she wanted a job anytime, she could get it. The first thing Obina did after the wedding was to upgrade her business from thrift business to brand new clothes. Sandra was mesmerized. She basked in the euphoria of being with a rich man. The euphoria was so visible in her steps, her behavior, and the way she talked. Even her friends could feel it. She had packed all her thrift wares and given them out. Obina was surprised when he heard that. He had thought she would just create an extension for the thrift business and not totally cancel it. It was the honeymoon phase, so he didn't want to ruin it. They had their honeymoon in one of the choicest hotels in the city for 1 week before heading back home. Obina resumed work the second week, while Sandra had her shop closed for another 1 week. When Obina asked why, she said she wanted to tidy up some things about their wedding, and she also had people to visit and appreciate. It made a little sense to her husband, but he wasn't fully convinced it was the right thing to do. Obina ensured he took care of his wife. He dropped more than enough money for food, drinks, and provisions. Sandra always had her fridge stocked with food. Her skin changed. Her friends told her she was glittering the last time they saw her. Obina took care of her skincare needs and her fashion needs. Sandra had absolute no shoes for money, so it affected her devotion to her work. She went to her shop late and missed some days. At a time when Obina wanted to start complaining, she got pregnant. That became another huge excuse for her growing laziness. She went to her shop just thrice a week. Obina was glad at the thought of having a baby on the way, so he put aside his displeasure, even though he had raised the issue with her once, as she complained about getting tired easily due to the pregnancy. The entire financial weight of the family rested on him, yet he didn't complain. He bore it all in love. Soon, Sandra developed a habit. She started to complain about Obina's excessive certifications and professional outings. You should be a boss by now. When do you plan to launch your business consultancy into a full-time company? You have the capital and the experience. What is stopping you? She complained. I want to start a really standard company. I hate mediocrity around me. I need to gain more knowledge from dons in the field on how to raise a successful company. And that is why I have been taking certifications and attending professional gatherings. It is not how fast, but how well. So be patient with me, he said. Sandra didn't understand the need for wanting to get perfect before it started, so she prayed him daily for that. The marriage continued, and Sandra continued to enjoy her husband's benevolence. One day, a friend visited her. Lillian had commended Sandra's skin and robust look since he married. Marriage really looks good on you. This man is taking care of you, she said. You can say that again. You provide so much to the extent that I am no longer motivated to work. It's been long I even opened my shop, Sandra said. Work is for poor people. God has answered your prayer. Just keep enjoying yourself, Lillian said. Obina was having a hangout with his friend, Uti, some days later, and he suddenly asked, "Does pregnancy make women lazy?" Uti looked surprised at the question. Why did you ask? Uti asked. Obina hesitated, then he talked. It is my wife. She has stopped going to her shop regularly since we married. It's been one excuse upon the other. I know I provide, but the reason I fell in love with her in the first place was due to her entrepreneurial spirit. Now I'm beginning to resent her, he said. No, you don't have to. Your marriage is still too young for you to harbor resentment. It might be the pregnancy truly. Women go through a lot during pregnancy, and it's different for every woman. Just be patient with her, said Uti. Obina nodded and changed the topic. Sandra brings his lunch to work every day. He was of the opinion that she should give it to him before he leaves home, but she said she wants him to eat it hot and fresh. It seems that she transferred her devotion to work to being a homemaker. She prepares about 3 different dishes every time she cooks. She serves Obina like a king. His food ranges from dessert, small chops, fresh drinks to the main course. She also learns the act of massage purposely for him. She massages him like a pro every day. Obina's dress sense also got better. Every evening, she would arrange matching outfits that are in vogue and prepare them for him for the next day. She kept herself abreast of fashion trends, collects money from him, and buys the outfits suitable for the trend for him and herself. Sandra is also a queen of surprises. Sometimes, Obina enters the house and he sees roses lined up from the living room into the bedroom. At other times, it is him being welcomed into the sound of his favorite music. Also, Sandra gets scented candles of different flavors and sets them into their home, welcoming Obina into a nice atmosphere. Sandra also learnt new dance steps every now and then and entertained him with twerkings on days she wasn't tired. Obina enjoyed all this from his wife. One day, something happened that turned around the trajectory of their peace. Obina attended a business summit as usual. It was a special edition that brought different zones together. There were 5 speakers, high-flying professionals, to teach from their wealth of expertise. After the first 3 speakers, the 4th speaker stood out in his presentation. He mentioned how he was able to build the biggest company in his town simply because of his wife's expertise in accounting. He elaborated on how their expertise in different fields were harmonized, coupled with their years of experience working with top companies as employees, helped to bet the greatness that they started their company with. He ended the talk with this statement: "There is nothing as beautiful as having a wife that compliments you." Obina shook his head as he listened to the powerful statement. That had always been what he wanted. He wanted a working and ambitious wife whom he could build a top company with. He wanted to have branches across continents too. 2 will chase 10,000. That has always been his belief. But here I am with a wife that does nothing other than cook, he lamented. He endured the remaining part of the seminar After the event, he saw the speaker and his wife, both dressed in suits, elegant and attractive, taking pictures. They were such a sight to behold. Obina stood and stared at them. That was what he wanted when he was a single man. The dream he had. He wanted a wife with whom he would attend business summits. He blamed himself for losing focus. He left for the bar and stayed there till late at night. He didn't call his wife to tell her he would be coming late. Sandra had prepared a surprise for him. She had bought a sexy lingerie and just learnt a dance step to welcome him. She was worried. Sandra had called him several times, but he wasn't picking. By the time it was 10 p.m., Sandra was afraid. She had called Uti to ask if he knew where his friend was. Uti said he didn't. Uti called Obina after the disturbing call from his wife. "Oh boy, where you dey? Your wife is worried sick about you." Obina replied that he wanted to be left alone as he needed to clear his head. "Try and go home to your wife. You know she is pregnant and worry isn't good for her," said Uti. An hour later, Sandra saw her husband. "Where are you coming from? Why didn't you pick your calls? Where have you been?" she asked, shouting. "You don't shout at me in my own house. We don't do that here. I won't tolerate such gutter behavior," said Obina. Sandra checked herself and bent her knees to apologize. Obina went in angrily. Sandra stood there, wondering what had come over her husband. She went in to call him to eat his food, and when getting into the room, he had slept off. Sandra was surprised. Did he drink? She drew close to him and could perceive the odor. She was angry. Obina knew how much she hated drinking. He was asleep, so she couldn't say anything about that. She removed his shoes and pulled him into the bed. The next day, Sandra had refused to greet him. She had simply gone about her chores and served his food. She wanted him to apologize for what he had done, but Obina refused to apologize. Rather, he also refused to talk to her and even eat her food. Sandra was surprised. She didn't know he would match energy for energy. She was sad all through the day. That didn't stop her from taking lunch to him though. She had dressed very elegantly to his office with a basket of food in her hand. She got a lot of compliments when she got to his office. Many told her she looked beautiful. She gushed with smiles. She dropped the food for her husband, who refused to thank her or compliment her look. When Sandra wanted to mention it, he interrupted her. "Can we please not bring family matters here? I have a lot on my head and I don't want more complications. Whatever it is you want to say can wait," he said, and walked out of the office. Sandra felt like a razor cut through her heart. She didn't know things had gone that bad. Sad, she left the office. She waited for him in the evening so that they could talk. They didn't get back home until late at night. At this point, Sandra was afraid. "My marriage is too young to be experiencing this," she said. She called his line, but he didn't pick. He came back home late and she refused to welcome him. Obina went inside. She had served him a 3-course meal in the morning because she ate bringing issues from the previous day into the new day. Obina refused to eat it. Whenever Sandra wanted to raise the discussion, he would shun her off. Some hours later, Sandra was walking past him in the living room. Obina pretended to be on a call. "Yes, nothing beats a working woman. Her sons will wake up and call her blessed. But you see those ones who do nothing but cook, eat, and get fat like a cow. They are a disgrace to the education they profess to have. Single men should avoid them," he said loudly. Sandra was shocked. She stood and watched her husband, who kept repeating the lines. When she was sure it was her he was talking to in disguise, she shook her head and went in. Since then, she stopped her good excesses. She limited her cooking to only one food per day. She reopened her shop and resumed every 8 a.m. and got back home every 7 p.m. Obinna felt he had won, though he was beginning to miss her because she hasn't been talking to him since then. Also, the time they spent together reduced drastically. Sandra went to shop every day except Sundays. She doesn't even stay home on Sundays. She visits fun places to have fun. Obinna missed a lot of things about their marriage. He missed the different options of bills he used to have. He missed the twerkings, the surprises he usually walked into, the sweet fragrances that she adorned their home with. He had thought he would be happy that his wife was back to work, but he was depressed. His friend Uti had noticed he was sad. "I warned you about this, didn't I?" said Uti after listening to his story. One thing you don't know about high flyer and working women is you might not have the full expression of a homemaker in her because her job takes a lot of time from her and she's human, she can't kill herself. Your wife wasn't working, but she was a great homemaker. We all saw how your cheeks popped out and your tummy grew due to good feeding. We all saw how she brought you lunch every afternoon. You think it's every man that enjoys that? My wife hasn't cooked for me in the past 6 months. It's work, work, work. Recently, I have had to hire a maid. I hardly see her. You had a wife that was always available, but you didn't know what God did for you. You better restitute your ways and beg her, Uti said. Obinna looked unhappy. What do I do now? He asked. Don't ask me what to do. She's your wife. You should know how to reach her heart, he said. Obinna bowed his head in frustration. Just then, his phone rang. His wife was in labor and she was already in the hospital. What? How come she didn't let me know before she went to the hospital? He asked Uti. That's because you stopped being her best friend, so she no longer felt the need to talk to you, he said. They both rushed to the hospital. Sandra had a prolonged labor. Obinna was agitated. He didn't want to lose his wife. He told them to opt for surgery. Just when they were about to sign the papers, she gave birth to a bouncy baby boy. Obinna was happy. He put a call through to his sister and Sandra's mother. After that, he went to his wife's bedside. Sandra shunned him. I am sorry for all I did to you and said about you. I was foolish to have said all I said. I didn't know the weight of all the free things I enjoyed from you until it stopped. It was then I realized how much comfort your efforts had brought me. I had thought your effort to keep our home was readily done by every other wife out there, until I got to know that it's a rare gift. I appreciate the many discomforts you went through just to make me comfortable. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me. You are my jewel of inestimable value. Your boy is deeply sorry, Obinna said as he held her hands. Just before she could talk, the nurse brought her baby, and while holding her baby, she looked at her husband and smiled.